All right, welcome everyone. We have another podcast today. It's number 155 with the man, the myth, Jeremy Ausmus, fresh off a monster WSOP, winning 2 bracelets, 3 now all-time bracelets. Very, very experienced, accomplished player, great guy, family man. We got Jeremy Ausmus on the pod today. Jeremy, how are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. I know we talked about it during the WSOP, of course. It's crazy. You got kids. You know, there's just always something going. It's kind of hard to do anything other than play and just kind of, stay afloat during the WSOP. But before we kind of dive back through memory lane and how you got into poker, just quickly tell me about this WSOP. You got off to a great start, winning a bracelet, literally, I believe, the first open event. So tell me about this WSOP and what worked for you to have such a successful, I guess not summer, but World Series of Poker fall for you.
It's all good. I've been calling it summer all year. Everyone, I think the thing is you just call it summer. It's just the thing to do. So
yeah,
it obviously went about as good as it could have. Every year for the series, I put on the grinding hat and I really go for it. And this year was no different. And I started off actually that COVID bracelet I won. It was one of the smallest bracelets ever awarded, probably. I mean, besides maybe the ones back in the day, it was like $48K for first. Actually regretted registering it right when I did because it was going to go all night and it was I thought it was going to be like 800 people and it ended up being like 200 and some. And I was like, man, I like to be a pessimist. I'm like, I'm going to bust at like 4 a.m. for like $3,000. And then I'm going to be shot for the next few days because I'm getting old now. So anyways, whatever. I won. Good way to start the series. But funny fact, and I tweeted about this. I don't tweet a lot these days, but a lot of people brought it up. They thought it was funny. I tweeted the next day or 2 days later, I played 2 events at the World Series. I won one of them, but I'm stuck. So I played the 25K no limit the next day, 2 bullets. My win was 48K. So I was down 2K day 2 after winning a bracelet. But whatever, I could have been down 50K. So
well, and I'm sure you would take it, right? To be stuck a couple grand, add a bracelet to the tally. That's definitely nice. So what are some of the misconceptions in poker too? I think that is people see, right? We look at your career, obviously you're a winning. Well, I mean, again, it's not obvious because depending on buy-ins and all that, but it's kind of tricky to see that you have 10 million in earnings, but people don't. I don't know why it's covering. Oh, okay, yeah, we go back here and we look at your career. So yeah, 10 million in earnings, but it doesn't show buy-ins, right? So that's like I think a little bit confusing for people too, because it's not always as lucrative and what's the word, glamorous as people think. What to you has been the hardest part to convince your family, friends, wife about poker? I mean, are they just completely supportive all in, or have they kind of been like worried about you, diving in and you've been doing this such a long time now?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it a long time, like you said. I moved to Vegas in 2005. So at this point, all my friends and family are very supportive because, I've been pretty successful even before, I was doing well in tournaments. I was a cash player and, making good money. So, and I met my wife, my now wife, back in college in Fort Collins, and I was already playing my last year of college. Small stakes, but I was making a living about it. So ever since she's known me, this is all I've done. So she's always been 100% supportive. I mean, the whole life we have is because of solely from poker, right? So, but you're right. The numbers can be very misleading. Like honestly, this year I'm not doing that great still after winning all that money because I'm playing a lot of high rollers, and I was having my worst year ever until I won that tournament, right? So, yeah, they don't list the buy-ins. This year it is a little smoke and mirrors to how I'm actually doing. But overall, the big picture, I've done quite well in tournaments. I have meticulous notes on everything. I enter every session I've ever played live since like 2011, since Black Friday. So I know exactly where I stand in every game, every tournament, and all that stuff. So it's good to be able to see that. But you can't say that, everyone has their own story, and you see a lot of people with a lot of winnings, maybe that they're losing, right? You can have 20 million winnings and be be losing. It's not hard to do, especially now the high roller scene. There's just high rollers nonstop now, and 10Ks and up, and then the buy-ins get 250, 250K, things like that. So it's misleading for sure.
I think I saw either it was on the Bernard Lee or some another podcast. I had some notes, and you don't really plan too far ahead. Is that true? You kind of look at what's going on, and obviously being in Vegas, it's nice to be able to just know there's stuff going on, whether it's at the Poker Go, the high roller stuff, just kind of they roll off stuff all the time. There's other series and major events come in. Do you plan at all, or do you literally like wake up for the the week or the day and you're like, all right, I'm going to play this and this is going on? How much preparation do you do in terms of scheduling?
Hardly any. I just never have. If there's a trip I'm going to travel for, of course, that's on my radar, I have to book that. I don't just book that last second or whatever, but I book that well in advance. I go to Florida a couple times a year. Would like to be doing some more Europe stuff eventually, but that's kind of on hold for me for right now. I think with COVID and everything's up in the air. But as far as, the series, I just plan on playing every day. And I look at the schedule, when it comes out, and I see some events I might be excited about, like the PLOs, things like that. I like the PLOs a lot, and just see what's out there. But I don't say like, oh, I have to play. It's very likely I will play that event. I only won't play that event if I'm in something else. And if I'm in something else and miss an event, I'm probably have a higher EV being in that other tournament, right? Even if it's a big buy-in tournament, if you're deep in a 5K, day 2 of a 5K, and there's a 25K that you miss, your equity and your EV in the 5K is higher than it probably you would be in the 25K registering right away. So that's how I always look at it. And then if I bust, I have no problem late registering. So I just fire. I play long days. I really play a lot during the series.
Talk to me a little bit about being a parent, and you have 2 children. I believe you're 43 or in that range. Is that right? Are you 43?
42, man. Slow down.
All right. Yeah. Sorry. No, you look 35. I knew I did see somewhere, and you were in that wheelhouse. I saw the birthday. I guess you kind of, you're a little bit older than me, and I feel like I came in around the boom. So did you come in around you're 7 years older than me. Were you playing poker before sort of moneymaker and all this, or how did you get into it?
The boom, for sure. The boom. I played back in the day in high school with friends, and during the holidays, I'd go to a particular friend of mine, and his family loved poker. They did that, and I would always go to their house, around the holidays. Obviously hung out with my family, but they would have these poker games, and I loved it. Like, I love games, right? As a lot of people in poker. Yeah. Loved, my grandpa taught me chess when I was a young kid, and big video, I love video games. So just any strategic kind of thing. And then, so it was in college. I wasn't playing a ton, but then the boom, Moneymaker was on ESPN. I started dabbling online on Poker Stars, small stakes, these sit and goes, and party poker, all that stuff. And I'd watch Rounders, and it was, this whole underground professional scene. And I was wondering, like, is this a real thing? Like, it kind of seems like a true story. I'm like, can people really like actually make money at this long term? And I remember going to Barnes and Noble and buying, like, I think I bought Scarn's Guide to Modern Poker or something, and was reading about it, and it sounded like you could make money over the long term playing poker. So I remember watching Rounders. I watched it like every day that week. I've never done that with a movie. Me and my roommates were crazy about it. One roommate in particular.
Great movie.
Yeah, and we were just playing heads up, on the coffee table every day, watching this movie, and then, like I said, online started, and I just kept getting more books, and I got like Sklansky, Limit Hold'em, and then I would go to Blackhawk, which was a couple-hour drive, and play $5 limit poker. This was like in 2003, probably.
Where were you, Colorado?
Yeah, I went to Colorado State, Fort Collins, Colorado, an hour north of Denver.
So you were actually in college, or was it grad school? Because like I said, I was like in high school when I think it happened, and then I must have I'm just trying. It's actually funny you say that. I do the exact same thing. I would drive like 3 hours with a couple buddies, and we'd play limit hold'em up at like, I believe in Michigan, you know, up north at an Indian reservation. I was playing like 3-6 and 6-12 limit hold'em. That was like really the first live poker I ever played. So very similar, but I guess you were just like, so you were finishing college or out of college?
So I took a couple years off college. So I had the extended college plan.
Okay.
Maybe I changed my major a time or two. But anyways, I was in college, my last year or two of college when I started getting into it. So yeah, and then I found like a local scene around Fort Collins where they were doing tournaments, and they would have a weekly tournament, and then a club popped up and they would have cash games, and another club popped up. So there was like 3 or 4 little clubs in this little, you know, Fort Collins, 100,000 people, college town. And so basically I kept reading the books and thinking, and I just loved it, right? So, and I could make money at it. So in 2004, I had already been tracking my results very meticulously, and I was making like $25 or $30 an hour playing poker, right? And my job paid like, you know, I worked at a wood shop. I built cabinets, and it paid like, I don't know, $10 or $15, $12 an hour or something.
Right.
So I was like, you know, I love to play poker. I had like a few $1,000s saved, right? That was a lot of money. I don't come from a lot of money. I never had a lot of money. So I just kind of saved up the bankroll, and I was like, I have this money. I have this game every day that goes now that I play. It was like a dealer's choice game. So I'd get out of class my last year. I quit my job. I would get out of class, go to the local card club, play a dealer's choice game, and they'd have no limit like once or twice a week, and just kind of built my roll higher and higher. And I graduated in 2005. I had like $6,500 saved, I think. And that was like the most money I ever had, right? I was like, I'm doing pretty good. And I didn't know people with that kind of money, right? So I'm like, I'm just going to move to Vegas. And I didn't have a job lined up. I did graduate, but I said, I'm just going to move to Vegas and see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? That I lose my money. I'm not risking like losing a job or not being able to support a family. I didn't have that. So I moved to Vegas, and I played. I moved to Vegas with a truck that didn't have an AC. I moved in August, and I just started playing 2-5 no limit around town at the Palms, mainly the Palms, Bellagio. I struggled a few months, and then I found Doyle's Room in December. They had like a $500 sign-up bonus, and it was something about the players there, and I guess I was always getting better. But I put money on for the deposit bonus, and I made like 10K or something. I'd kind of been break even, then I made like 10K in December, which was like huge, right? Like 1.5x all the money I had. And then I just moved up the stakes, and I just did really well on that site specifically for a couple of years, and then I started mixing in 5-10 at the Win. Played that a lot. I was kind of doing online and live. And then
when did you meet your wife? You said you met her. You were already like playing poker. You met her in college or in Vegas?
In college in 2004. So, or I'm sorry, 2005. It was just a few months before I moved to Vegas. She was just finishing college also. She became a flight attendant just to do something fun, travel around a little bit. So we were able to make it work pretty well, right? Because I played poker and had my own schedule. She was a flight attendant. She had free flights, and she'd get me free flights sometimes. So we did that a couple of years, and then she moved out in 2007. And that's when I bought my
and tell me, as a dad, I consider you and Darren Elias, I mean, there's a few others, but you guys are kind of two guys I know, and I see you make it really work. Or again, as you know, as parents, the work best it can, because it's chaos, right? There's always stuff going on. There's things, there's events, there's all kinds of stuff happening. How has that been being a father now? How old are your two kids? And how old?
11 and 9.
Okay, so yeah, it's a little they're a little bit older than I think a lot of my friends that that have kids. I have a lot of kids, the guys like 5, 3, 2, kind of that age of kids, which makes sense. You're 7 years older. What has that experience been like? What have been things that have, was that a period of time where you were like, wow, this isn't going to work, or it's too difficult? Or did you just kind of get a schedule set up where you find, to make your own schedule playing poker that works?
Yeah, we always made it work somehow. It's not easy, right? It's not like a normal job where you leave and go. I'm not sure I understand. Sorry.
Siri.
Okay. Chill out, Siri. She just has to get a word in,
It's all right.
Yeah. So it's not like a normal job where you go to work 9 to 5, you come home, and then the job's done, and then you have your family time, right? It can be different hours, things like that. And for me, I was playing a lot online when we had our first child, and I would always want to, check the games. Like, I needed to be playing when the games were good and when they were going, right? So, and that wasn't all the time. So it was not easy to balance all that. But one thing I've never done is done the whole night shift where I sleep in the day and I play all night. Even after Black Friday, and I was playing live all the time, I just made it I don't like to mess with my sleep schedule, and I don't feel like it's a good family environment, right? So I just have always played in the days. Outside of tournaments where I play into the night sometimes, I've never been the night crew. Like in live cash games, there's kind of like a day crew and then a night crew, right? And some guys will just be there for both a few days in a row.
Right.
I never did that. Like, I think I pulled an all-nighter in cash games one time, and that was before I moved to Vegas. Otherwise, I hardly ever played late for cash. So,
and tell me, we're going to jump around a bit because I do want to go down memory lane. Your first live kind of success, and of course, just like 98% of the people on the show, final table, your first Hen and Mob result, the first recorded, it says 7th place. Maybe got you the itch for tournaments, but tell me about that 50K tournament you just took down, WSOP Bracelet. So again, congrats, get your 3rd, but 2nd of the WSOP 2021. What was that like? Because that when I remember watching that, I actually fell asleep because it went so late, and it was pretty entertaining. I mean, you got 2 of the biggest names in poker. Of course, yourself, very well respected and known, and a great resume. You have over 10 million in earnings now, live. And what was that though? Playing 3-handed with Negreanu and Hellmuth, like guys you probably watched since day one and knew who they were. I mean, it's got to be a little surreal to play a 50K buy-in. All your friends, family are watching. Everyone knows these guys too. It's not like 2 random guys that found their way there. So tell me about that experience. And also, you're not a night guy. Didn't it go to like 4 a.m.?
Yeah. So I do get on a bit of a night schedule during the World Series, and I sleep in. That's kind of about the only time throughout the year I do that. But it's just beneficial to kind of be on that night schedule a little more. So yeah, it was definitely one of the coolest experiences I've had in poker. Just to beat Phil Hellmuth, who's Mr. WSOP, right, with all the bracelets. The heads up was really quick. We were very short-handed, but playing heads up, beating him heads up was cool. Not a lot of people are going to be able to say that, right? So even, if I had to pick who I wanted to play heads up at the final table, it wouldn't have been him, right? Not because of his stature, but I think he was the weakest PLO player. And he would probably, he wouldn't agree with that, but I think it's his worst game, he admitted at the table. So, and Daniel too, I'm friends with Daniel. I like Daniel a lot, and it's fun playing with him. I thought he played really good. But the table was just legends. Even before the stream started, Ben Lamb was there, and Jared Blesnick was there. This Laszlo guy, Omaha for Rolls Online. This Alex P, 4th place, is an online legend who was hilarious, by the way. It was a great final table. Josh Arya. I mean, it was just
WSOP Player of the Year. You got Sean Deeb, who won the 25K PLO, and maybe one of the guys that can make a run at Hellmuth's record, one of the more prestigious. So yeah, these are big names, great players. Henrik Hecklin. I mean, this is all-star stuff. So how do you rate PLO in your game? I believe you won your first bracelet in PLO as well.
Right. Yeah, PLO is one of my better games for sure now. It's I think I would say that before I would have won that. I'm not just saying that because I won, but I've played a fair amount the last few years and feel really good, like, you know, in cash games and online and stuff like that. And I mean, I think I would be kidding myself if I would say I haven't ran well in the PLO tournaments, but it's a small sample. I've done really, really good. I went deep in the 10K. I got fifth this year. The 25K I got like 14th, and then I won the 50. And then I won. I wasn't very good at the game back in the day when I won the bracelet, which was 2013 or 14. But yeah, it's my top one or two games besides No Limit.
And what about mixed games? You do play. You said one of your best games. So you do play a fair amount of other games.
Yeah, I play the mix. I've gone off and on with the mix. I play it. I don't play it, but I'm familiar with all the games. Yeah, I play sometimes like the 2-4 and 3-600 at Bellagio, or you know, things like that. And at the series, some years I play a lot of the mixed events. This year I played a handful of them. I played the 50K a few times. I almost did this year, but I decided, like I said, I was getting killed this year, and I'm like, decided not to play it. But yeah, I play all the games, but I don't know how great I am in like the stud games and some of the draw games.
And how do you deal with, you know, tournaments are obviously your wife knows what happens because she probably follows it. She can, you know, sees it or checks updates. But what about like cash games? You go play 200, 400, 300, 600. Do you basically come home and do you say how you did? Do you not? Do you keep it kind of balanced? And does your wife kind of feel the emotions of the ride, or does she rather not know like how you're doing, win or lose, just kind of in general how it's going? How detail oriented are you in that regard?
Yeah, she likes to know how I did, and I mean, I'm not too emotional about it. Like if I'm losing, I don't get too down. It can happen if it's a prolonged period of time, right? I can just go and lose, and it's not going to really bother me. But when you lose for 8 months or a year, that's when things start to get pretty frustrating, right? So, and I know you can relate to that. That happens to all of us.
For sure.
Especially when you're just playing tournaments. There's just a lot of volatility, and unless you final table or win, you should go into a tournament and expect to lose, because that's the reality of it. You're going to lose 80+% of the time, right? So going in with that mindset, I think, helps to deal with it. It does get frustrating after a while if it keeps happening, but I think you learn after a while, after you've done it several times and been through several bad downswings and all that. You learn to live with it a little better.
What do you believe your balance is with cash games and tournaments, like within a year, just in a typical year? What's the percentage you play of what?
So like after Black Friday, it was over the years. If you could graph it, my tournaments have just gone up and up in proportion to cash games. So this year live, I've played 4 cash games maybe. And I used to play 70 or 80% cash games. Now I just play tournaments more. There's just, the tournament scene is growing. The cash game scene isn't, unless, like I've talked about the private game scene. I don't know. I'm just kind of into tournaments right now too. So mainly tournaments. If I do play cash, it's more likely to be online.
And what did your parents say, or in your family, when you started to play poker and they're like, oh, I'm going to move to Vegas and go there? Were they like, oh, that's great, good luck, let us know how it goes? Or they're like, you cannot do that, what are you thinking? What was their attitude?
Yeah, my mom. So my dad had passed away when I was 21. So it was just my mom. She was okay. She was pretty supportive about it. I think she's always kind of been like that. Let me do kind of not just anything I want to. Obviously, she provided guidance for sure. But it's kind of like, what could she do, right? I was in my mid-20s, and I had my own money. It's not like she was going to bail me out or do anything. And I think she probably thought I would go and just lose my money and, you know, pursue a normal job. But she did know that I had made you know, I hadn't bothered her for money for a year, my last year of college, and I quit my job. So she knew I was doing better than I'd ever done. But I don't think she realized you could move to Vegas and really make a living, you know, like I did.
And does she sweat like when it's on Poker Go? Is she subscribed and in there and following along and, you know, having tea with their friends and putting you on the big screen? Or is she kind of like nervous, doesn't want to know, and then she like you tell her how it goes?
No, she's followed me probably closer than anyone. Yeah.
Nice.
So she subscribes to Poker Go. She's, you know, she sweats it. She'll text me sometimes, or, you know, in the middle of the night, like, oh, and I don't tweet a lot or tell people what I'm playing or doing. She'll look through the WSOP, find where I'm at, find all that stuff. Big supporter of it.
And does she ever like, is she inquisitive, curious? Like, does she like, why'd you do that? Or, man, that play was crazy. Give you any critiques, or just kind of like, just sit back, enjoy the ride and trust the process? And same with your wife. Does she ever give you any, like, what happened or why did you do that? You know, does she understand the game and follow it closely?
They don't. My wife understands the game. I taught her how to play a few years back. She gets it. But she doesn't, you know, she's never questioning anything. If anything, she might have a say or like a question about like what I'm going to play and why I would play this instead of this. But any decision I make when I'm playing, she never says anything. And my mom either. No, she's I don't know how much she really gets the game, but she watches it a fair amount, so she must get it. But she never really comments much about the play. You know, she might say something about how me acting like an idiot or something like that. You know?
She enjoys the theatrics. Fair enough. All right, and let's talk about early on. You get in, you're playing cash locally and this and that. 2008, though, what made you go play the first tournament in Tunica, nonetheless? It looks like, or maybe you played a couple, right? And maybe in cash. This is the first recorded cash, at least. What made you go to Tunica?
I don't know. I guess I was just kind of dipping my feet in the tournament scene. They had I think they had a WPT or something out there.
Okay. Yeah, it says World Poker Tour. So maybe it was a side event. You played the other one and then played this as well and cashed that. And then you fast forward a couple of years, though. Looks like you probably weren't playing too many tournaments, maybe focusing on the cash, but you do have a cash in the 10K, you know, the LA Poker Classic, and then a big score here at this. I'm not sure what that is, the big event, but in LA, what was that like? Was that a bankroll booster? Or were you already kind of cruising online?
That was a big one for. I mean, I was already doing really well online. It's funny, that first trip to Tunica, to go back to that really quick.
Yeah.
Somehow, I don't even know how this happened. I didn't know anyone in poker really. I guess I went out there with a friend of mine. I'm pretty sure I went with my friend Colby. And somehow we got in a limo with Alan Kessler, right? So we rode with him to the casino, and I just remember thinking, like, this is an interesting guy. This Alan Kessler. I had heard his name, I think. Anyway, that was a flashback memory I had. But yeah, the one in I mean, before that, even the win one, which was like 55K, that was a pretty big deal. You know, that was the biggest score I'd ever had. I remember it was a big bankroll boost. You know, I don't know how much money I had then. Maybe
these payouts are savage back then. Literally like double the whole way. You know, 4 through 1. You know, big difference. Really? Yeah, 108, 55, and so top heavy, right? Like as in general payouts are, but I guess 143 and you know 18 cash. So this one did stand out though. This was like did you kind of catch the tourney bug with this? You're like, all right, I like gonna start playing more tournaments.
I did partly because you know I bricked my first like 30 events at the World Series. I went like 0 for my first 30. So I had already played a fair amount. This what was it for? I remember we chopped. I don't know if that was reflected. Also that win one, the win we chopped that. I got more money than him.
And in the win in this one?
Yes, I got like 70 or 75.
Okay.
that guy, Bob, I think, he wanted the trophy and the points because he was playing a lot of tournaments then and doing well. I took more money and something like that. And then also, so then the big one in the 190K also, we made some deal there. I think I got three-handed with Hashem and
Victor Ramden.
Victor, yeah, exactly. And yeah, maybe that actually reflects the deal we made. I can't remember.
Interesting.
But that was a big deal. That was I had started doing really well online, like in the 25-50 cap games. So I was doing pretty well already, but that was still a big deal.
And then of course the biggest score, a 7-figure WSOP. What they started in November 9s. I don't know. Was that already a thing, or was that around the time where you were in November 9, right?
Yeah, we were actually. Ours was October 9.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So what happened here? I mean, this is a huge entry, right? 6,600. It's the year that Merson won. I think he had to win it to win Player of the Year, and he did. And I mean, some big names and exciting down the stretch. Like, talk to me about this run and how magical is this?
I mean, I think it's safe to say it's almost every poker player's dream, right? To final table the main. So to do that was awesome. It was definitely, like I said, that 50K was one of my best poker memories, and then final table the main. Those have to be the 1 and 2. I don't know what was more special. I mean, final tabling the main is it's so hard to do. There's so many people. That was really cool, and that was obviously a huge deal. That was $2 million. So
because I mean, it looks like this WSOP. You have some cashes. Doesn't look anything out of the ordinary, right? A couple of like min cashes. Maybe you could argue, say, probably not that great a summer or going into the main event. And this is basically the main event ended. There wasn't like another 10 events, and this year they had like high rollers galore at the end and kind of a lot happening. But here you go into it, and did you get out to a fast start, or what was, were you out of the gates, or did you just kind of hang around and get hot late? What was your sort of your graph looking like on the days here?
I didn't get a hot start. I was pretty short. I was able to gain a few chips on the money bubble, and I was headed down to play on the money bubble. This was like day 3, I guess. Day 3 or 4. And my wife was pregnant. She called me like halfway to the Rio. She called me, and she's like, I had lunch with my friend. I just got dropped off. I'm locked out of the house, and it's 110 or 15 degrees out. She's pregnant. So I had to turn around and be like, go let her in, and be like 30 minutes late with like a decent stack on the bubble. So that kind of, honestly, in hindsight, obviously, the butterfly effect, it probably wouldn't have worked out like it did. So that was a lucky thing that happened.
That is pretty intense. What was like, was there, I mean, it's just so hard to imagine like that many people that size buying actually final table. It seems impossible. When did you feel like you were a threat? Like, when was it down with a couple hundred left, or did it get, and it is really a magical run. So what was like a turning point? Was there a big hand, or you caught a heater? You said you had a lot of chips on the bubble. Where did you kind of extend your lead and exploit situations? What worked for you during this particular tournament, though, at the end, like take it down to the final couple hundred?
So I feel like I never had a ton of chips until I think it was, I mean, my memory is foggy on all this, but day 7 you played at the final table, so it was day 6. I remember playing with Kyle Kiernan and Paul Volpe and John Beaupre. We were talking about this summer. Was at the table, and I called Kyle on the big hand on the river. He was bluffing, and then I just kind of caught a run, and I think I looked down with 50 left, and I was a chip leader. I had like 9 million or something, or something, like, if my memory is right. But I was chip leader for a while, like 50 people, and I was like, I felt great about my game, and I felt really I mean, looking back at how I played, I don't play like that anymore. But at the time, I had very high confidence. I was just crushing online, and I had cashed like 12 tournaments that year. My online tournaments results were good. I felt like I could definitely win. I liked my chances a lot. I also so that was great. But then you know I didn't stay the chip leader. I won a big flip against UV with like a couple of tables left, which kind of propelled me into just hanging on to make the final table. Came in a ninth to the final table, and then honestly I did the least studying I would think of anyone at the final table. Because my son was born in the off time. So we were off for like 2 months, and I would have liked to have just played because I felt like a lot of other players had a lot of room to make up where I didn't have as much, right?
Right.
So my son was born. He was born like 7 weeks early, so he was in the baby intensive care, the NICU, for like I think he was there for 3.5 weeks. So during that downtime, I was, me and my wife were going to the hospital to see him every day, feed him, do all the parenting stuff. So the biggest break I've ever had from poker was from when I final tabled the main until I played the main event final table. I just didn't play. And I felt fine with it because I liked where my game was at. But it's so funny because someone was watching the final table. A friend of mine sat next to me in a tournament the other day. He pulled up the final table and was watching some hands, and I was seeing some of them. And I'm like, man, I was opening just way, way too wide. That's just what I did back then because it worked, right? People folded too much, but it was even my bust hand. I had like 10-7 offsuit on the button. You know what I mean? It's just kind of absurd things like that. So, but.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it is it moves around, right? Population tendencies, different things, different exploits, and obviously what you're doing was working. But yeah, I'm sure if you probably tweaked in and threw some stuff in for today, what you would play a bit differently. But most players would say the same. What are the things you do to work on your game? Are you big into PO? Do you have a group that you work and study with? What do you think are some of the attributes and things that you do to sort of make yourself one of the elite pros in the world playing the highest stakes?
Yeah, I think you got to be solving these days. I've spent a fair amount of time with things like that. Munker, PO, and all that stuff. Analyzing hands. So I play hands, and I'll check them out later that day. Any hand I play, I don't feel too confident in, or if I'm questioning how I played it, I look into it. And you didn't used to have the tools like you have now, right? Back in the day, you could analyze sessions, but maybe send them to friends and talk about them, but you didn't have a solver. And solvers only take you so far, right? Because some people are just off the solver grid, right? So you can't, the range they have isn't the actual range the solver's playing. And, on the turn, what they would have done on the flop, their range is different from the solver. So I think a big skill is being able to use that stuff, but also turn it off when you need to.
Right.
Do because you get so used to playing like that and thinking like that. But I think most of the top players now are doing these things.
And you mentioned Phil Hellmuth earlier. You battle mixed games. Phil Hellmuth had a record seven WSOP final tables. He just constantly sort of puts the naysayers and the haters, if you will. He kind of feeds off it. The young whippersnapper GTO kind of crushers don't seem to give him the respect. Where do you stand with like Hellmuth, Negreanu, these guys that have been around for a long time? Obviously, Seidel competing at the highest level. It's to their credit, keeping with the times, kind of adjusting their game. But what do you think about? Let's just take Phil, because you played him heads up. You mentioned PLO not his strongest game. What do you think of his like no limit game, and in general, do you think Phil deserves more credit, less credit? What would you say about Phil?
I think the big arguments start because people have a game they're good at. Maybe it's no limit cash game or a high roller, and they play a certain way. They don't, maybe they're not playing the tournaments he plays, right? So you can do things differently in in a softer tournament. You don't have to do things like optimally, like the solver says exactly, right? So you can make stupid, crazy folds sometimes because the guy's range is just not what it is in against the high roller, right? It's just way different. So that's why I said being able to turn it off, or just being able to resolve kind of, if you use the solvers enough, you kind of just know how to apply the theories and mechanics of it all to a new range that they might have, right? So like making a crazy fold that you should never fold, that Pio is going to say is a 10 big blind mistake, you can do that sometimes in the really soft field because the guy doesn't have bluffs, right? So your top of your range is half of it's dead, right? So I mean, I've always given Phil credit because I think he's doing things like that. I do think he won't do good against the top players. If you put him in a 25K at the Aria against, Ollie and Jason Kuhn and a lot of players like that.
Chaos and Chidwick and Obama.
Chidwick and Elias.
Yeah.
He's I don't think he's gonna win. I mean, but I don't think people have given him enough credit for what he's done, right? And also let's think about this. Go way back before solvers and before all this new school of poker came up. He was crushing no limit back then, right? He was. I think people look at how someone plays now and forget like this guy was way ahead of everyone back in the day, and they don't give any credit for that. Maybe it doesn't matter now, but I still respect that, right? Look at Huxley, Daniel, and Negranu. Those guys crushed people back in the day because they didn't have solvers. You didn't have anything except your brain to figure it out at the table. And the guys figured it out, and I respect that. I think it's cool. And I still respect those guys, even if they aren't beating the game now, because a lot of guys aren't into the new school tools. It's hard to evolve. I will say this about Negranu. He's evolved with it a little bit, right? He's one of the few old school guys who studies. I think, I've talked poker with him a little bit. And I mean, he was pretty open about the challenges he did and studying and all that stuff. Who else can you say that about of the old school? Phil obviously isn't doing that stuff. And for what Phil plays, maybe he doesn't need to, and yeah, he has a lot of haters even about his mixed games and all this stuff. So I think he doesn't get enough credit, but also I don't think he compete with the top players.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I think that all seems like a pretty spot on assessment. What is, moving on, you hit that $2 million score, you're playing, where do you go from there? And how did you feel after that score? Cause it's such a large amount. It's a 10K buy-in as well. This isn't a 50K or 100K. It's 10K. How did that feel? Were you like, wow, I was so close to winning 8 million? Or were you like, man, tough final table, some great players there, and I'm really happy? What was your sort of, because you had some time to sort of process, right? I'm sure you went through it. You're like, all right, I want to get, at the final table, where you're at. The difference is when you don't play the next day, you have time to digest, think about it, think about all the different scenarios. You get the million, right? They pay you whatever the final table money is on the spot, and then you come back and play for more. So give me your mindset going into that, and also how you felt when it ended.
Yeah, I felt great after it ended. I think part of it was I came in at 9th, right? I came in 9 of 9, even though I still had, I think, almost 30 big blinds. When you come in and last and ladder up, another 1.3 million, 1.4 million, I felt, and the amount of money was, 2.15 million. It was huge. It was, a life-changing sum of money. So I felt really good. I was just happy to be there, and then I laddered up several spots. People were just busting left and right, and it was great, fun experience. So I felt good about it. Maybe now more. I've always felt good about final tabling, and however I do, I don't get too down on myself. But more in the last year, I guess I hadn't really like won. I'd gotten so many seconds and thirds and fourths in the last couple of years that I was starting to get frustrated not getting a win, so.
And do you with I'm hearing I hear a ping. I don't know if that's a message. Do you hear that? There's like I don't know if that's on your maybe your PC or I don't think it's mine. I don't know if it's like a WhatsApp or do you hear that?
I heard it. I thought it was yours, but it could have been mine.
Well, listen, after the start to the pod where with the mic issues and again, I'm not ruling anything out. It definitely could be me. It's 50-50 legit.
I closed an app, so it could have been that.
All right. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that noise, so I think it might be on you, but cool. How do you evaluate your game? Because I think this is one of the hardest things in poker to be not results oriented. You could win the 50K PLO and not play great, or you could bubble or not cash in a tournament and play your best and get unlucky. And obviously, the more experience you have, the better you are to sort of what's the word? Understand, right? To just see like, okay, like you can go home and think, not scratch your head and wonder. But is there times on a downswing, or it's more so on downswings, right? So it's upswing, things are working, you don't have to think too hard and just you're happy and whatever. On a downswing though, how do you look at yourself and be honest about how you think you're playing, and especially online, because sometimes online is a little bit trickier to. Well, I guess there's the EVs and you can run like the trackers, right? Poker trackers and see your all-in values and stuff. But do you feel like you're good to see that, to know like if you're playing well or if you make adjustments, or how do you do that? How do you sort of be honest with your game when things aren't going well?
Yeah, I mean it's something all of us poker players have to deal with, in a good way. Like I said, I just I'm always questioning it, and especially, in downswings. But I think it's important to, question plays and upswings too, when you're doing really well, and still review these hands and things like that. And, people might not do that as much. But yeah, just trying to be honest with yourself. Like, is it just variance, or is everyone just really good now? Do you have tells? Do you think about all this stuff, right? And just try to, if you think that might be a thing, try to cover up if I have tells and be more aware of that. Maybe wear a hat low, things like that. And I think feeling your best, and as I've gotten older, I feel like sometimes I just don't think as clear as I used to, or maybe not in tune with the situation as good as I used to be. So for me, something I've kind of noticed recently is my diet's a big deal, and if I can get some exercise in and good sleep. When you're younger, it doesn't really matter. You're still just like, you think through it and you figure it out. But as I've gotten older, I've noticed it affects me a lot. So, not having high sugar foods that spike your blood sugar and things like this, because I have crashes after that. And I even don't drink much coffee now because I feel like I have crashes after coffee. Things like that, just so you're always at your best or near your best. And one person that is just the epitome of this is Jason Kuhn, who's a good friend of mine. I mean, he works out and eats better than anyone I know. And honestly, I feel like his brain function is as high as quick as he is with everything. It's funny because I never used to notice that about him, but now, like, I can barely keep up with him when he's talking sometimes. Like, he tells a hand and I'm like, dude, you gotta slow down, tell me that again. His brain is working, man. And I think it's just a testament to how he eats and takes care of his body, and I think that just flows through.
Give me your typical day, like during non-WSOP. Do you wake up? Do you get workout in? Do you hit a cold plunge? Cold shower? Do your routine? Meditate and all that, or do you kind of, with two kids, is that out the window? You get them to school, wake up, hopefully see them, and then go from there. How organized are you?
Typical day, I'm waking up at 7 a.m., go down, hang out with the kids and the wife, and help with lunch, and just hang out till they go to school at like 8:15, and then I've gone through phases, right? Like we all probably do, where you're meditating, you're eating great, you're working out, and then you fall off. So I'm not doing much meditating these days. I am trying to get at least some sort of workout in, even if it's a quick one.
Right.
And then eat good. So The cold plunge I do sometimes. Actually, I was trying to get my son to jump in the pool with me here. It's like 40 degrees out. And I jumped in. He got partway in. It was so cold. I lasted like 20 seconds, but maybe 30. So I think things like that are good. Sauna. I have a sauna back here. You can see
Nice.
it a little bit. So I do that. Um, yeah, and then I look over hands a lot, things like that.
Nice. And do you enjoy studying, or is it like, man, I got to do this, or is that partly does it not bother you? Like you'll sit there and spend hours at a time. Do you have a ratio? Do you say, okay, today I'm gonna take off, or do you do periods, right? Like where you play the WSOP, you're not probably studying while it's going on much, maybe review a few hands, but and then like, all right, WSOP's over. Let me look back, take some time to study. How do you break that up?
Yeah, I don't really have a set schedule. It's kind of like what you said. When I'm really busy with poker, I'll have hands I review, and then during slower times, I'll look into stuff more areas I think we're weak and study those. Personally, I like all the study stuff. I don't know. I like numbers, and I don't know. It's just I've been playing this game so long, and you've always questioned how you play these hands, right? Like, how should I play this hand, this and that, and then to have like a somewhat of an answer key is it's huge. I think so. I think it's really amazing, and yeah, I use it a lot.
We're talking about social media, and you say you don't post as so much, but you do have Instagram, Twitter. Do you keep up with it? How often are you updating stuff? Do you spend a lot? Do you feel like you spend a lot of time on social media, like keeping up with things, or you just kind of use it now and again? What are your thoughts on that? And also with kids, right? You have kids now, and getting in. Oh, I hear my son trying to get in here. Yeah, how do you manage with that? Because it's becoming kind of very prevalent now, right? It's like something that's always a part of our. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear my son in the background. He knows I'm here. The door. Yeah, he just. Yeah. He starts talking. So yeah, tell me about that. I might have to let him in here and say hi for a second, but I think my wife, maybe he'll just go away. Oh, he's going. Okay.
Your wife ran out for a while.
Yeah. She just left me. Yeah. But how do you deal with that? Like, because you're on it, you're a part of it, you're on your phone. How does that? All right. Sorry, I'm gonna have to. I mean, he's just gonna give me a sec. Hey, buddy. How are you? You want to say hi real quick? Yeah, I'm working. You have look at this. This is every day now. He puts his jersey on. Can you say hi? Hi. That's Jeremy. Hey, he has 2 kids also. He has 2, a boy and a girl, right? Boy and girl?
Yeah.
Look at that. He found these cleats. My wife got these cleats like a year ago. She found them. Okay, they're too big. They're like for 6-year-old. He's 2.5. They're actually not soccer. They're the wrong. They're football cleats. He won't take them off. He wears them to bed. He brings me in the morning, and he wears this jersey every day. Who's your favorite soccer team? Roma. He wears this stuff every day. He just can't do it. Where's mom? Working? Well, can you go get her? Go get her for me, okay? Because daddy's doing work too. Okay? All right. Okay, go get her, buddy. Thank you. I know, but he beats it down. All right, yeah. My wife said you don't need to open the door. He starts kicking, like he'll literally try to break it down. All right, yeah. So anyway, sorry about that. But yeah, as you know, there's I forget where we were at. I think I was asking about social media and kids and how you're on it and how much of your life that is it overwhelming, or do you just kind of look at it now and again?
Yeah, now and again. I'm not on Instagram a lot these days. So when I first got into it, and then after I finally tabled the main business around the same time, I was posting a lot because I thought it would, could lead to potential like sponsorship deals if you get a lot of followers.
Yeah.
All that. But then I did kind of, I didn't enjoy it that much, right? And then part of me felt, I mean, it's kind of dumb, but part of me just felt like if I was winning stuff and always posting me winning, I'm just like bragging all the time, and it just felt weird to me. But then I had some results and I didn't post anything, and I had a few people text me and they're like, "Why didn't you post anything about this, man? I didn't even know it happened, this and that." So I did realize that, you know, it is a good way to just update people on how you're going, how you're doing, and people do want to know that. Otherwise, they wouldn't follow you, right? So, but I've gotten away from too many updates. It's just not my thing, really. Yeah. Anyway, so I try not to be. I'm on Twitter a lot more, but I try not to too much. I'm on there like following crypto stuff more than poker these days. Probably just reading and learning about stuff. But yeah. So I'm in there a little bit. Facebook hardly ever on, and yeah, it's scary with now. You know, my daughter's 11, and she's gonna be wanting to get into that soon, and it's kind of scary, right? It's just like the world we live in now, but it's just a different kind of world. So
yeah. And tell me about sponsorships back then, because this is, I think the original was November 9. A couple years before, you said it was October, not November. How was that like with sponsorships, with getting patched? And you know, at one point I remember they were giving like for side events crazy money and stuff back in like 04, 5, 6, 7, that kind of area. What did the deals? What did they? What did the? All right, yeah, he's good. We got. Sorry about that. Yeah, what was it like? Did you get off? Did you shop it around? Was it just for poker? Were there other things you were looking at? What was the sponsorship kind of the landscape then?
Yeah, so it was much more lucrative in the years prior to me making the final table. By the time I was there, though, I was happy with what I got. You know, I think I got like 40 or 50K equivalent in sponsorship just for wearing it at the final table. I had like 1 or 2 commitments I had to do after that, and I was 9th in chips. No one knew who I was, so I was happy with that. And then that led to me final tabling in Maine, the Ultimate Poker, right? Not to be confused with Ultimate Bet, but the Ultimate Poker. We were both team pros on that, right? Yeah. So that was fun, and maybe I should try harder on social media and stuff now. Because it could be lucrative again, right? I mean, it's obviously you're in a good spot, party poker, right?
Yeah.
So and you know, Jason just signed with GG and things like that. Obviously, he's a big time superstar in the poker world. I'm not like that at all, but maybe if I worked harder with my social media and all that, I could get something. I don't know. It's not really my thing. I don't like to be like on all the time. I mean, I'm not like a hermit or anything, but I don't like the spotlight too much, I guess.
Yeah, it's a trick, or it's just tricky, right? Because it's like it's a fine line. But I think one of the things that's interesting is that the kind of worlds are colliding, because I think for a while, I remember when Kevin Martin signed originally with PokerStars back, it was sort of a big deal. People were like, why is this guy getting signed? Like, he plays $20 tournaments, and it was sort of like when the changing of the guard of that, where it's like people, it's like, oh, a guy wins a high roller tournament or something. You know, the sites realize that, like the Twitch, the YouTube, all that's. And I think the interesting part is now, I feel like, I consider myself more content than playing, but I still like to play. And I also realize guys like yourself, others are doing a lot of solver work and that are just, the top 1%, 0.5%. It's like you have to be realistic and have and I think having a hybrid it's rare, right? It's rare to have people on social media that are like a world. You don't see the absolute top players really doing it, because it is a lot of work. It's like a full-time job in itself. But I think that the players are understanding too. It's good. People on YouTube, people on Twitch, people doing these are like good for poker to help keep the game, flush and lucrative. And I think that there's a little more respect amongst like kind of both ways, but more so that the players that are high rollers and crushers realize that it's sort of it's a essential component of the formula to have new people coming in the game. So it's kind of cool. I do feel like there's a nice mix it's an interesting sort of dichotomy of action and people that they give, it's just different, right? Like, it's hard to do it all, and you have to kind of make a choice. Like you said, you're either kind of in or out. You don't want to just be spending 4 hours a day on social media, scrolling and doing whatever. You either want to really be in it or really be out, and it's hard to do it all. So it makes total sense. And if you had to choose a platform, what would be? What you said, Twitter, you spend more time on?
Yeah, definitely Twitter. Yeah, for sure, without a doubt, that's the one I'm on the most. Yeah.
Nice.
I use my Instagram a lot more, but I haven't. I've been really bad the last couple of years with it. So
well, I want to make sure everyone knows to give you a follow, check you out on those platforms. And then I want to remind, we're going to give away a retweet question. If you have a question for Jeremy, you have time right now. You can go there on my my pinned tweet, and you can go ahead and ask a question. We will head into that pretty soon here and try to get as many of these done as we can. Hopefully, Jeremy, if you win, I don't know if you retweeted to let people, your fans, know that we're live, but you're not eligible. I'm sorry. If you win, we'll redo it. If you did get that out there, I'm going to go there in a few minutes, but I do want to ask you a couple more questions about your high roller stuff. Playing 50Ks, 100Ks. We see here, you did hit that 2 million. Before that, were you playing 25Ks already and all this, or was this sort of like, did this boost you up into a point where now you're going to start firing some of the high rollers?
I don't even know if there were many 25Ks back then. Like, honestly, now they're just so common. But I did have a stint at high rollers, I think, after the main or something, like 10Ks, things like that. Like the kind of what Poker Go's doing now. They were doing that on a smaller scale, just like at Bellagio and things like that. I didn't do very well in those. Those were some 25Ks too. So I didn't do too hot in many of those. And then I kind of, would only play like the bigger, better ones and travel for them, at like the stops, I'd play 25Ks. And then last few years, I've gotten back into them since I'm mainly focused on tournaments again.
What is you still, even after all this, like I see you have a fairly wide range in buy-ins. I feel like you do still play some of the, like I see you in some 1Ks, 1500s. Here's an 888, crazy 8, gimmicky event, but a lot of money up top and pretty soft. How do you what's your determining factor when you go register and play a tournament? What's sort of like the key things you're looking at? Guarantees, buy-in size, what your EV you think is, or like here, you're even playing 365. I mean, it's a fun one. I'll play these too. At PLO, it's a World Series bracelet. It's great. But like, how do you play there's not many guys playing 365 in a 50K, right? In the PLO, like that's a wide range on the buy-in. So what is that like? How does your mindset differ between the two?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd still play the 365. But if I do play those, and most of like the 1Ks and 1500s this year, I would just show up for the last minute because I'm playing so many hours. I don't want to show up level 1 of a 1500, although my ROI would be better, obviously. But I just fire last minute, and if you can double 10 big blinds, if you can run it up, you run it up, and if you get deep in those, you have a lot of equity. Your stack's worth a lot if you get deep in a 1K with a few thousand people. So yeah, I just last minute fire those and start the bigger things on time usually.
How detailed are your notes and your understanding of the players? Because you do play a lot of these Poker Go high rollers, and they're 20, 30, 50 person fields. So you see a lot of the same guys, and obviously some very talented players as well. Like, give me a little look, and not specifically, but what are some categories or things that you kind of, you must start to know the players very well, like tendencies, bubble play, final table bubbles. Like what type of stuff are you looking for, and what can you do against these guys that are just like also world class players? What are some things that you might be looking to exploit, or what are you doing? Like when you go register 25K at the Poker Go studio and there's 30 guys, what are you're hoping for? Maybe a few amateurs or a little bit of EV generation, but what's your mindset when you're playing the best of the best in these fields? What are you looking for?
Yeah, trying to pay good attention to obviously there's always some recreational players. A lot of them play good still. But really, so it's kind of like watching these really good players and maybe see what you can learn from them, but also maybe how they're deviating from the optimal play that the solver play is. So if I see anyone play a hand that the solver would say that's not a good play, I will notice that and take note of that and think about how that can be exploited. Or if maybe they did it for a reason, or maybe they just they have a tendency to do a certain thing, right? If they're out of balance in these certain spots, they can be exploited. If they're not. So, people are all trying to utilize the perfect strategy, and it's hard to do. It's really hard to do. And I miss them every day. I miss a hand. I don't play a hand exactly like I should have. So that with the good players, and apply that to the bad players too, and kind of put the solver thinking away with the worst players, and just play poker like we used to play, like what your gut tells you, and what you've seen this guy do a lot of times like that. But there's a lot to learn watching the best players, like on the bubble, and final table play is a whole other can of worms there, with ICM implications, things like that, and how a certain big stack like Ali might play that versus someone like Foxen or something, or Seth Davies, how they might all just play it differently. And if you can pick out what they're doing differently, it's gonna help you.
Is poker more fun for you now, today, current age, with technology, the streaming, the high rollers being prevalent, or was it back in the day when you started and you were building a bankroll, traveling around, and you weren't really sure if you could make it or not, even though things were different and the stakes were different? What to you is more fun, that now or then?
They're both fun, right? Like it was a lot of fun, like building the bankroll and yeah, traveling around and meeting all the people, and like I said, pre-solver play, like everyone's just playing differently. And after Black Friday and all that, I felt like I was playing significantly better than most people, right? People weren't defending enough, they weren't raising enough, they'd fold too much post flop. So I might have had the most fun back then because I felt like I was clearly ahead of a lot of players, right? Whereas now everyone's like, in the high rollers, everyone's just good now, right? Even the rec players are like just playing a lot better than they used to. So the edges are very small. At the same time, it's fun now because the opportunity with tournaments now, right? There's all these high rollers right here in Vegas, and you can go play them like several days a week almost, out of the year. I mean, I could play 60% of them high rollers, almost 10Ks and up or something. Hey, I don't know. I haven't done the math exactly, but it's a lot. I was looking at the schedule going into the next year, and there's just a lot of stuff coming up. It's just nonstop. What Carrie Katz has done with the Poker Go Studios and just the whole tour is amazing, and I think everyone kind of owes them a debt of gratitude because they're growing poker. He came up with this, Poker Go subscription model, and then he's getting it on. It's on CBS Sports now, it's ESPN. A lot of the events are on. Like I'll just have people randomly text me, "Hey, I'm in the bar. I just looked up and saw you on TV," and it's out there. It's popular. I feel like it's always been pretty popular. I don't know if it's more or less than it was, but it's getting a lot of exposure still.
Right.
Like you said, people that aren't players as much as like content creators, and like Kevin Martin, they're bringing a lot of people to the game during the game. That's great. The Triton tour. I mean, there's a lot of big, exciting things going on. People are running tournaments really well. Like at the Poker Go Studios, it's just with Paul Campbell. He's amazing. At the Aria, it's just a top-notch experience every time they do it. Not the Aria, the Win. They do an amazing job. They're starting to get bigger tournaments. So I think there's a lot of exciting things. Also, online poker, I think, is going to start making a resurgence. More and more states are going to pass. So I was pretty bearish on poker like a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. I kind of thought the end was coming, and now I feel like the future is really bright and there's a lot of opportunity out there. Like I said, the state by state, and maybe it'll just go all the states eventually, or even if we get 20 of the good states and more big sites coming on and things like that, I think it's just poker's moving in a direction that's what players should be excited about.
For sure. And how do you approach a 3,500 WPT? Let's take the Hard Rock, right? They get the record field size, which is great for poker last year. I think it was, or this year, actually, I believe earlier in the year, it was like 2,500 or 2,000. I forget, like way over the record field size. When you go and sit down at 3,500, know it's going to be 4 or 5 days, similar to a main event, but it's also a smaller buy-in that we're used to playing. How does that compare for like a 1 or 2 day 10K or 25K? What sort of what do you enjoy more? What's kind of more exciting?
Probably, I mean, those big field events are fun. I think they're more fun, right? And the 10Ks get a little monotonous. It's a small group of players. The experience over there is amazing. Like I said, it's one of the best experiences in poker. But those Florida tournaments are a lot of fun. Like the characters you run across, and they do a great job in Florida at Hard Rock too. The turnouts are amazing. And when you go deep in those, like you're playing for a lot of money, right? You can win $1 million sometimes. So, and the field can be soft, and there's all these loose cannons everywhere. So those are a lot of fun. I've always had a very big soft spot for, like Jason Kuhn, you know, he gets fired up for the high roller bowls and all that stuff. I really love like a huge soft 10K, like, or 25K, you know, like the Stars had one a few years ago. Things like that I really like because you're playing for huge stakes if you go deep, and it's somewhat soft, right? So, and I mean, if you look at my resume, that's where most of my big results have come from, right? The Final Table main, the Party Poker Millions second there, things like that. So, yeah.
That was a fun one. I remember this tournament. Yeah, this was right there in Vegas. They threw it together, and Tom doesn't play many tournaments. Just comes in, takes it down. Absolute legend, Marchese. Not a guy that if you're gonna losing to Tom, you can't feel too bad. Guy knows how to play some cards. All right, let's dive into some questions because I did see a lot of stuff that I actually wanted to ask, and we're already over an hour here, and I think people live getting some questions in as well. So let's kind of go up. Anything we can, can you see it on my screen or no? Because I'll just kind of read some. But if you see anyone that I scroll over, you want to answer, feel free. Let's just get off the gate here with Ghost of M legend Marco, lead moderator. Everyone knows Marco. Please ask Jeremy who he thinks is the best newer live MTT player who may be flying under the radar. Yeah, give me a name. Maybe someone's popping up in the 10Ks that's sort of young. Is there another young wizard out there? Anyone that's like that we haven't heard of that you would want to put the eyes on?
I mean, Ollie wouldn't really fall in that category anymore, but he was one of them a couple of years ago, obviously. Now he's got a friend, Rock, Gustika or something.
Yeah, he's been crushing online too.
He's been doing really good. Steven Song. I mean, Steven Song's not really a unknown anymore. He's won a big Bracelet event. Who else has come along? None that are really jumping out at me. I don't know. There's got to be so many of them, and I just don't even know them.
Right. Yeah, I think there's been some stars born during this COVID online era too. Probably guys have gotten really good, and some crushers that are maybe haven't emerged or whatever, or we don't know of yet. But I'm sure there's a lot of new up and comers. All right, let's go to a favorite thing to do outside of poker. What do you do to reset, relax after a deep run or whatever, bad beat, win? What is something that you like to unwind with?
Obviously hanging out with the kids and the wife, but I like music a lot. I play guitar and a little bit of piano, so I'm trying to kind of resurge in the last couple of years. I've gotten into guitar a lot and play that and try to sing and do some covers and all that stuff. I like that a lot. That's a lot of fun.
Very nice. What about a poker idol? Who was your favorites watching on TV growing up? Who did you look up to either because of their play or just their character trait? Who was someone that you always enjoyed to see when you were watching growing up?
It had to be Ivy. I mean, Ivy was just the standout. Like maybe not. I mean, there was other great players, but he continued to prove himself over and over, right? Like through the years on full tilt, just playing anyone at any game and usually crushing them. It was just unreal, right? For someone to do that from an old school, one of the old school. I don't know if he's old school, but I can.
Yeah, he's one of the OG. I count that old school, like the back Poker After Darks, 04, 05, 06, these guys that we saw on TV. So yeah that's a good stuff.
He would be the guy. I mean, he was just a freak. I loved watching him. He was amazing. I remember the first time I played against him, even at the World Series, and it limit hold'em, half limit hold'em, half no limit. And I remember what it felt like. How I compared it to is when I first got to Mike Tyson and Mike Tyson's Punch Out, right? I don't know. Maybe you're too young for that game, but
No, I know. I actually have, dude. That's funny. I'll send you a picture. I have it on my wall here. You can't see it. I can't really move my camera outside, but I have that Mike Tyson like signed photo of that game right there. So I know,
yeah, that was a great game. But
I got this in the charity poker thing. Yeah, no, it's funny to see now. That's what I was saying with kids, how crazy technology is, right? This, like, looking at the graphics and like this game was so sick, and like now we're, I'm looking at these like Grand Theft Autos, and like it's just insane. Like it's literally like, now there's the metaverse and whatever. People, it's getting a bit wild. I'm worried about our kids and in the future and what's happening, what they'll have access to, and what's going to go on. It's a bit crazy right now with technology. Tell me a little bit about if you don't mind sharing, on staking, swapping. How do you play 100K, 25Ks? Do you sell some? Do you swap some? Like, give me a little bit of a look in the high roller scene. I've heard various different, kind of explanations. Actually, Bonomo just went into pretty big depth. He was on the other day. Obviously, I just took the #1 spot and explaining a bit, like, how do you break that down? Is there, depending on how you're doing, you have your year set out where you're like, all right, I'm gonna sell to some friends or people, or does it depend on how things are rolling, on what percent you take and what you do with your high rollers?
Yeah, it kind of depends on how I'm doing, but yeah, I sell action. So back in the day, like, I didn't used to do all that, right? I was a cash player, and I was just, whatever I played, I just took all of it, right? But now, and maybe because I'm getting older, I'm maybe just more risk averse, right? So, yeah, so I do sell for the bigger stuff, and I have some friends that just will buy anything I want to sell. So, and then, yeah, I'll try to get some swaps in there sometimes too. Not as much swapping, but yeah, I'll sell just some bigger stuff.
What about place you'd like to visit? And what's your favorite place you've been, and what's the place that you are looking to go? You just never gotten to go, and you would love to go, take the family or whatever, go visit.
I mean, I love visiting Rome. I mean, I've been there twice. I just thought it's an amazing place. Like, I like history and all that, and just to walk through and just see this stuff that's, a couple thousand years old is amazing. So that, maybe not to live or something, but to visit.
You're not just saying that. You saw my son come in with his full kit. He had the full Roma jersey on. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That's his squad. He loves it. I took him to the first season opener in Rome this year. He had the best time ever. That is that's just such the history in that city. It's just crazy. You just feel it, right? You get all this stuff there, and it's very authentic place. So yeah, very good choice.
And I love wine and gelato, so that's there. There's a lot of places I'd like to see still. I haven't been to a handful of places over there, but I've never been to anywhere in Asia. Went to Australia once, but I love Europe. I really do. But now the kids are getting a little older. I think we might do, after COVID calms down, if it ever calms down. I think we might do like a big trip like that. We used to just go to the beach and things, but I think we might do a bigger, like a Europe trip, and now they can appreciate that a little more.
With 2 kids, it is a production. I'll say that. It's one of the things, like, now, like, going to dinners, getting out, organizing, you realize, like, small victories, but going for like a European, those Chevy Chase vacations, it's a lot, right? You gotta plan, you got the whole everything, car rides, the plane rides, you gotta have entertainment. The ages are different when you can do stuff. I mean, I'm going through it right now, but it's wild, right? It's just not like, I miss those times too, where you could just go anywhere you want, anytime. There's a tournament in Tunica, like your buddies tells you just hop on a flight and go, and it's not quite like that. There's a little more planning and routine. So
it's not like that. Yeah, I recommend when they're like under 4 or 5 not to do a lot of traveling. Ours were very active, so I remember I went to Hawaii with like a 5 and 3-year-old. My son, or maybe my son was 2. He was 2, and I think they were 2 and 4, and he had just started walking. Hadn't been walking too long. He could walk, but he was unstable. He walked up and down the aisles the entire flight there and back, and went to Florida a few weeks later. Same exact thing. It was like 4 4-hour flights. and I just followed him up and down the aisle, making sure he didn't die, fall and hit his head for the entire flight. So, and then it's a lot. People don't get it. It really, really is a lot. But I remember the first vacation that was actually felt like vacation. It was a driving trip. We did the California coast. Because these other trips, you go on vacation, it's not vacation.
Right. I get it, man. Some of my friends now have 3 kids. The 2 kids seems like it's a lot. I just don't know. I guess you would tell me. I don't know how much the difference you feel went from 1 to 2, and that you had sort of understanding the initial process, right? So it's probably some learning curve there, and you kind of know what to expect and how to deal with it. But I don't know. It just seems like the thing that I don't understand is like kids with events, right? They got practices, schools, quite like you want to try to be active, involved. I guess like when you start getting to 3, 4, 5 kids, like 5 isn't so common now, but I have friends with 4, 3. It just seems so hard, right? Like how are you like balancing their time? Like there's just always stuff going on. It just seems hard.
Yeah, so. two is a lot. It feels like a lot because once they get in all these activities, it's just a lot. But by the way, it gets easier and easier. Now it's fun to go places with them, right? And they have fun. You can see them experience it, and it's really cool.
I got to ask you about the terrible twos. My son's 2.5. I'd say overall, he has his moments, but he seems reasonable. Would you say, was that a thing? Like, what was it? Give me, this could be off topic, but since we're here and there's probably some parents out there and maybe, new parents, what ages were the most difficult and stressful? And what was, were your kids pretty well behaved in the 2, 3s, or was it chaos?
Yeah, it's kind of chaos. Like I said, they were really active. So they were just into everything, right? They would never just sit there. I remember our friends' kids would just hang out, and just be calm and play. And our kids are climbing and doing all sorts of stuff. So it was a lot when they were 2, ever since they started crawling, basically, until they calmed down at like 5, maybe.
Right.
Like that. So it was a lot.
It's so interesting how kids have their personalities, how like you just don't know. It's like what you could have 2 or 3 kids and they're just completely different, which is, it's fascinating. Kids are fascinating to me, but it's definitely fun. What's your favorite place to play live poker? If you just, take away the buy-in, if all things same, say it's a 10K, whatever it is, cash game thing, where is it that you're like, wow, like I'm happy that I'm going because either the game's good or it's a great tournament? Where do you just love to go and play poker?
Well, I mean, it depends if you're talking about the all-encompassing experience. I had a lot of fun when I went to Australia a few years back. I'd like to make it out there. Melbourne was a really cool city. That was fun. Barcelona was cool. So those trips are cool when you can go to a city you've never been to and play some really good poker tournaments and then see a new city. I love those trips. As far as just the playing experience, I mean, I would have to give it to the Poker Go Studios. It's just the best. It's 6 to 8 handed at the most. It's spacious. It's comfortable. They run the tournaments just unbelievably well. Like they're so on top of everything. The shot clocks, and then the win is right there too. The win is amazing. It's an amazing spot.
Yeah. No, it's I mean, as you would expect, Vegas, right? Sort of the mecca for poker in the U.S. in general, and so it's nice that there are really top tier venues. Did you play in Atlantic City for a while? I thought I saw someone make a comment on that. Were you living there or grinding there for a while?
No, I've been to Borgata a few times and played there. I should give a shout out to Florida too, to Hard Rock and Tony Burns down there. I think they do a good job.
Tony's exceptional.
Yeah, they're running larger scale events, but they do a good job too.
Yeah, no, it really is great. What was your most satisfying bracelet of your career? You've got 3.
I mean, the first one was the first one, right? So it's hard to match the experience of the first one because it's your first bracelet and everyone thinks it's so cool. But I mean, the last one I just won, the 50K. That had to be the one that I really am gonna remember the most. Just the high buy-in, legendary final table. It went forever, and it's cool. It's gonna be on the stream. All my family can watch it, and it's going to be, I think they're going to put it on the CBS. So, and without a doubt, I would say the last one. But the first one has a special place. The middle one, I did something good for charity, so that was good at least.
Yeah, there you go. We got a strategy question from Juan Franco. Give me nothing advanced, elaborate. Give me something maybe someone who's a beginner with when they're in respect to bet sizings. Do you have any just like quick trick? Is it a board texture and sizing or position? Give us we don't want to spend a lot of technical time, but Juan looks, he's a student of the game. He wants to know. Give us a pro tip.
Probably in general, people bet too big, like especially multi-way. You should be betting small usually. Also, I think if you think about the hands you're targeting, that helps a lot. Like what the bulk of their range is, like if they have a lot of draws, the idea is you want to bet something that makes their hand like indifferent, right? Where they are torn between calling and folding. So if you can match a bet size that does that with a lot of their range, and you see people constantly in the tank and frustrated, then that's how you should be doing it. That means you're doing a good job, in my opinion.
It's well said. Poker goals 2022. Do you follow Hendon Mob stuff? I mean, you crossed the 10 million mark. It's a pretty significant milestone in terms of of earnings, and there's not many people with 10 million all-time earnings. Do you look at this stuff? Is it fun for you? Do you think this is? You say, look, I want to be number whatever in Nevada. I want to be all-time money list. Do you pay attention to stuff or just kind of go with the punches?
Yeah, I don't too much. I mean, I do a little bit because I told my kids, like when I hadn't won a tournament forever, I was high on the GPI, and I was like, look, I'm like ranked number 4 in GPI, like number 4 player in the world. So they thought that was pretty cool. I'm trying to win them over so they think I'm cool, even though I hadn't won anything forever. So I don't know, like I don't focus too much on that. Like I just put in the hours and put in the work, and results take care of themselves, I feel like. So I never set goals. If anything, I set like hour goals or something, like how many hours I want to play, but not. I never set financial goals.
Well, that makes sense. And where do you think we are as an industry with poker? Because the name Hendon, it's mob, right? Which is a little bit intense. There's not really, it does an interesting job. I love the fact, like to me, on almost every podcast too, to like kind of go down memory lane. Like I love seeing, you can click, see, because it's hard to remember, right? You're like, I've been playing 15 years. It's like, all right, go back and wow, there's this many entrants. I took this place. It was in this place. It's really amazing. But in terms of like how it's done, do you think poker compared to like PGA, FIFA, some federations, like do you think that it's in a good spot? Would you like to see things done differently? Or do you think that your friends, family, and people are able to follow along pretty closely and it does a good job with tracking and everything?
I think they do a pretty good job. I mean, especially like I said, with the high roller scene here at Poker Go Studios, it's amazing there. And they live update almost any of these tournaments. Like, they have a series of 10 and 25Ks right now. Every one of them has a reporter on it, so almost every high roller has a reporter. So I think they're doing a great job with that. Obviously, they don't have the eyes and the sponsorship money as something like PGA and things like that. So it's going to be a different product, but I think it's cool. Yeah, you can go on Hendon Mob down your whole list, and like you said, you can kind of relive it and remember it. And I hadn't thought about if that didn't exist, and you would just completely forget about all this, So
Yeah.
they have that, and something amazing too that pro sports golf, they win a lot of money, but they don't put it up an entry fee, right? And why is that? It's because advertisers are paying all this money because it has so many people watching it. So, I mean, something Poker Go is doing is they're paying you to play now. Like there's a 50K on the 20th in 6 days. They pay you $1,000 if you show up on time, you pay zero rake, which is already awesome. And then they're paying you an appearance fee for $1,000, which is, it's 2% of the buy-in that they pay you to play. So I think if we started to see more things like that, obviously companies don't want to give away money, right? It's not in their best interest to give away money short term anyways.
Right.
Their main idea is to make money, but I think what they're thinking is maybe they get, so basically the sponsorship money they're giving some back, much like golf or something like that, which is, they're getting way less, but to see them give some back, I think it's a huge step, and it's really cool to see, and maybe we'll see more of it.
Do you believe, well, first of all, have you seen Queen's Gambit? Do you watch some series at all?
Yeah, I did watch that, yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? And do you think that poker could benefit from something like this, and that, just the negative connotations in general, or even like Rounders? This is like the most prolific poker movie, but it's got, some seedy stuff. It's like, it's fun, it's cool. It got me into poker as well, and you can see the beautiful side of it. But like, it is kind of, if you watch it as a viewer, you're kind of like, oh, look, I think people cheat, people do this, it ruins relationships. Guys are like, ruining their lives or just risking their lives. Like, it kind of looks a little dark, like instead of like the Jeremy Ausmus that goes through college or finds poker, runs up online or a few grand into a family that he was staying himself, winning millions of dollars, and the lighter side. Do you think that poker could benefit, or is, and because it does seem negative, right? It still has it's almost like when you tell me professional poker player, it's not like people aren't, their faces don't light up like that. I mean, it's cool, it's fun, but it's sort of like feels a little seedy still. Do you feel that way?
Not too much. I mean, feedback I've got, well, everyone I tell always thinks it's really cool.
Yeah.
I think 20 years ago that was much more so what you're saying, and I think it still exists, right? Because there is a dark side, and that's because it's gambling, right? Like you're putting up money in gambling, but what people don't realize is it's a skill game like chess or whatever. It's just you have to put up your own money to play, right? That's just how it works. So because of that, it attracts gamblers, right? Because people who maybe just played blackjack forever, now they're trying out poker, right? And some bad stuff happens. I think there are bad actors in every field, right? I mean, I think people at the top kind of have it together more in like golf and all that, but I think you see that with poker too. If you go down those top names in poker, I don't think you see too much shady stuff, but there are some problems these days, like with because there's just money at stake, right? Like cheating, and like with online poker, that's a big deal. So I think I don't know, like it's not in the best light for sure, but I think it's kind of hard I think it's come a long ways, but it still has a ways to go. Although I just don't feel like you'll fully shed all of that negative connotations of it.
Well, let's take a couple more. I just realized we are running a bit over here, and I know you have some stuff scheduled, and I think you're playing an event today, or?
Yeah, there's a 25K at Bellagio.
All right. Well, yeah, let's get you going here, and maybe one or two more guys. Remember, there is a $50 giveaway. I'm going to pick the winner. I'll do that at the end here. We're almost done. Let's see, maybe one or two more. What about? Let's see. I've seen a bunch of interesting. Oh, people are asking about books. For me, I've never seen people ask. I don't know why they're asking you. You look very studious. Is there any poker books that you would recommend? I guess it's changed so much, but you did mention a couple when you first started. Is there anything recent or old school that you would recommend?
I haven't really read a poker book in a long time. I think there's some good mixed game books out there. Maybe I think Dylan Lindy has one out there.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as, I mean, it's so much like, I think training sites is the way to go now. There's just, it's just more in tune with what's currently going on in the games and things like that. But it is a little more high level too. But honestly, I mean, one of the best poker books I read was Cole South's Let There Be Range, it was called. I'm sure you could find that somewhere. It used to be like $1,000, but now you can probably find it cheaper.
Interesting.
Maybe a little more advanced also, but he's just a really sharp dude and was a great poker player when he played.
Very cool. And what about the last question I will ask is, do you think, you said you're pretty bullish on poker right now. I don't even want to go down the crypto rabbit hole. Maybe we'll talk about that. In general, crypto NFTs, a little dip right now, but do you think that the poker, the state, the health of the community, where would you rate it in terms of where it is at the exact moment? And do you think in the coming years, do you see this becoming even more healthy, or do you think that it's going to be hard to keep up this kind of boom, the secondary boom, if you'll call it, recently?
Yeah, I think things are gonna keep going pretty good. I think online poker is going to spread state to state. Finally, I can't believe it's taken this long. There's more tournaments than ever. People are doing a better job running them than they ever have. Big Blind Annie. I think that things just get better for a few years. Like, you know, maybe not that explosion and the golden age like we had back in the day, but I think it's pretty good right now.
Very, very nice. And any closing words? Anything people that you're excited about coming up? I mean, they can sweat you again on Instagram, on Twitter. You post some stuff. Anything, you know, New Year's plans, Christmas, anything you want to, you know, you're looking forward to?
Show your son this Instagram goal. My on Instagram, scroll down a little bit, click on that soccer one.
Let me see if this. Yeah, I don't know if it might be too loud. Okay, it works. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Number 5. That was my number. Yeah. I love that number. Oh wow, no way. Going coast to coast.
Yeah, show your son that.
Whoa, yo, that's actually a crazy finish. That is not an easy. How old is he? 9?
At that age, he was maybe 6.
Okay, yeah, that I was gonna say but man, dude, he just housed that like no angle, dude. That's crazy. All right, I'll show him that. He will love that, man. Honestly, I'm so like I played soccer my whole life. I love it. I'm almost trying not at this point to get him too hyped about everything because he's so. It's it's really crazy for 2.5. I'm telling you, we had to put him to bed with his cleats on and then take them off. And he's like so. I'm trying not to like. You know, I think I've hyped him up a little too much and how much I like it and want him to be a part of it. But yeah, no, I'll definitely show him that. All right, let me load this up. Hopefully this giveaway thing works. I'm gonna let you choose the winner. $50 cash money records. We're gonna give it away. And let's see, download retweets. Look at that, 90 people eligible, better than 1% chance. You know, I never know. You might spin 50 into a dream. Were you one of those guys you kind of started a roll? Did you put a little bit online and just never look back, or a few deposits, or how did it go for you?
Or a few deposits, yeah. Once I got on Doyle's Room, like in 2005, that's when I kind of never looked back. But before that, I kind of was up and down on party poker and things like that.
Nice, very nice. All right, guys, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna let Mr. Ausmus here tell me when to choose. We'll choose a winner. You just tell me when.
All right. Do it.
There it is. Choose a winner. This fancy giveaway tool, the retweet giveaway. It screens for bots. It does the thing. And there it is. Peter Meerkops. Hope I pronounced that right. You just won $50 in cash, and I will be messaging you. We're going to handle that. And I am going to see you guys tomorrow for a podcast with Scott Ball, who had a little bit of controversy recently. Looking forward to kind of talking about that, clear it up. And he actually won the No Limit Player of the Year, won 2 bracelets. I think, were you guys the only, maybe one other person won 2 bracelets this WSOP?
I think there was maybe 4 or 5.
Maybe Zeno too, right?
Zeno won 2. Did Josh Aria won 2? I think
yeah,
he won a PLO and a PLO 8, and maybe there's 4 of us.
Pretty sweet, man. 2 bracelets. Congrats. That is impressive. Always a big fan of your game, how you carry yourself, being a dad, making it all work. You are, I would say would you say you're like the poker consummate dad, like the father? I mean, who else is like kind of out? No, I mean, I say Darren Elias as well, but you're a little, I mean, they're 10, right? 11 and 9. So you've been doing this for a while, like showing that it can work. I always wonder, I'm like, man, I just don't know if I'm going to be able to keep kind of playing and doing it, because it does seem difficult. But I guess living in Vegas helps to have that many options in one place. So.
For sure. Text me if you have any questions. I remember Jason Mercier texted me a while back. He's like, man, does this get any easier? So yeah, text me. I'll try to help if I can. It's not easy.
I love it. All right, guys. Well, listen, this was podcast number 155. Jeremy Ausmus, appreciate it. Congrats to the winner. Be on the pod for Tomorrow, Scott Ball, and then I actually have Yuri, the man, the myth from Brazil next week, and Matt Kalish, co-founder of DraftKings, the following week, kind of closing out the year. So we got a couple more big podcasts going to be streaming, playing online from Twitch towards the end of the year as well. But I really appreciate Jeremy. Sorry to keep you a little past your hurt. I hope you get your cold plunge, hit your shower, get over there and crush these events and keep your heater rolling at the moment. Really impressive stuff. Big fan of how you play and do your stuff. So, man, cheers. All the best. Thank you so much for taking the time and coming on.
Sure, man. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, brother. All right, guys, that was Jeremy Ausmus. I'll see you tomorrow for a 1 p.m. Eastern podcast with Scott Ball, and we'll check back with you then. In the meantime, enjoy the 247 channel. Matt Staples is live on Twitch. Check him out as well, and we'll be back for that tomorrow. See you guys.